Welcome to the 2-minute warning interview series where we take a deep, if rapid dive into the key issues of the energy transition in the Middle East and beyond. My name is 𝗕𝗶cie𝗳𝘂𝗲𝗹𝘀. I'm the Director of the Energy Transitions at Gulf Intelligence, and I'm delighted to have 𝗕𝗶ጽ, the CEO and Chairman of Neutral Fuel Holdings, with me today. Hi, Carl. Can you hear me?
Hello there, Michelle. How are you? Yes, I can hear you fine. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Right, well, I'm looking forward to diving into the world of biofuels with you today. So just to give a quick background for those listening, it's a very positive outlook. Biofuel production forecasts 25% growth over the next 5 years, say the IEA. Global biofuel production increased by 10 billion litres in 2018, reaching a record high of 4 billion litres at that time. And the agency is saying all of this in late 2020. So we're well amidst the impact of COVID-19 on mobility and on bank balances as well. And the output is forecast to increase by 25% to 2024. So it's a 2019 rating. So this is all better market prospects in Asia, Brazil, the US, and China specifically in Asia. This is a very positive outlook, Carl.
Yes, it is. I mean, it's also good to see people adopting biofuels. We've been banging this drum now. We've had active factories in the Middle East for 10 years, and we've been explaining to people that this is the quickest way of them reducing the carbon footprint of their transportation systems. And a lot of people have obviously realized that already. McDonald's has been working with us now for 10 years. And we've picked up 𝗕𝗏𝗀𝗃 and Nestlé and a bunch of other really good brands through that time. But we've seen the last couple of years is that more and more companies have just said, okay, we've done everything we can to reduce the carbon footprint of our buildings. Now what we need to do is to look at our vehicles. There's no electric trucks available in any sort of quantity. So we have to do something with existing vehicles.
And do you feel that this is really truly the turning point? We've seen a huge shift with sustainability generally over the last 18 months. I've been covering it for 15 years. Nothing has happened like this in terms of momentum before. As you were saying, you've been beating this drum for a while. Do you feel that eyes have truly been opened to the potential of biofuels, which is huge?
Yeah, I have to say, we've been pretty busy for 10 years, but I've never been so busy as we are now. Last year during COVID, we opened 3 new factories, and we've got 5 that we're working on opening either by the end of this year or early next year. And this is just to try and keep up with demand. I mean, the demand is truly astounding, and that has picked up in the last couple of years, even during COVID.
Oh, and these 3 new factories, where are they? One's in Abu Dhabi.
So we opened one in Abu Dhabi. It's the first biofuels facility in Abu Dhabi. We're the only authorized producer of biofuels in Abu Dhabi. And we're also using that fuel to supply ADNOC, which is a pretty interesting state of affairs. The other one is in Bahrain. We're the first biofuels producer to ever be authorized in Bahrain. And that's going pretty well. Then we've opened up in Delhi in India. There's already been quite a lot of biofuels activity in Delhi, but earlier this year we became the first biofuels company to supply the Indian government Indian oil with their first shipments of biofuel in concurrence with the government's policy of moving towards a 10% biofuel mandate.
And these are obviously significant moves forward. Are you doing a lot of these projects, for example, in India? Are you working with local companies and local stakeholders as well in this market, or more of a lone ranger?
I think some people would challenge the lone ranger. I certainly travel a lot to these places, but I seem to somehow have no problem meeting excellent people to partner with. We own our subsidiaries in all these countries. So it's a partnership, but it's definitely something that Neutral Fuels is actively involved in. We provide the financing for building the facilities. We provide all of the technology, which is based on patented equipment that we own. And we provide the training necessary to all the local staff in both the business model, the apps that we use. We use a lot of IT in our solution, and also the chemical processing that we do.
So that value chain is very, very nicely wrapped up.
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, we plan to IPO the business in a few years' time, and you have to have your entire supply chain sorted. Everything has to be well organized in order to be able to go public.
And you just mentioned then about financing, that you finance these projects yourself, and there are another 4 or 5 factories I believe you're looking to open in a couple of years, which I'd like to get into a little bit more shortly as well. How do you find the finance market for biofuels, not just for yourself, but in general, for the broader market? For example, hydrogen, green hydrogen, some projects face a little bit of hesitation when it comes from investors, some seeing it as more of a higher risk project, others are very keen to get involved, obviously. Where does biofuels fall in? Whereas, you know, solar and wind, everyone's a little bit more comfortable now for very good reason. Where do biofuels fit into that picture?
Well, to be honest, I think that funding for sustainability projects at regional or city level scale has been miserable for a long, long time. There's a lot of talk in the media about funding for these sort of ESG programs, but it really has failed to hit the street. What we were very lucky to do is we formed a new entity that's raised a bond. So we have a bond program running out of London, listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. And this is a fully green bond that complies with the ESG criteria. We were independently rated by Sustainalytics as having a green bond. And we've listed the second series of that recently, which is a $50 million program. And that will fund the rollout to the next 20 sites. The program itself is $250 million. And as and when we need that money, we'll be able to leverage that. And we found that there's a lot more interest in having a publicly traded instrument that businesses and pension funds and property developers can access in order to see good returns and also to provide ESG into their portfolio.
And that level of confidence as well in having that sort of architecture. You mentioned $250 million and you said you use it as and when. What's the rough timetable that you think that might be utilized?
Well, that's probably over the next 10 years. We expect that we'll roll out the next 20 sites over the next 2 or 3 years. That'll probably take us to IPO. And then we have a plan at the moment. We've got 53 locations that we've done feasibility studies on that we're ready to roll to, but simply it's a matter of the countries being ready, the cities being ready, and us having enough bandwidth to just go to all of those places.
And that number of projects, does that include the 4 or 5 factories that you're planning for this year?
Yes, the 4 or 5 for this year are included in the next 20. That'll add to the 4 that we've already got. And this is, you know, it's quite feasible. Our facilities are not huge. They can come on stream very quickly. Normally, they're profitable in their first year. So we've got the model worked out very well. It's now just a matter of scaling it.
And scaling it certainly seems to be, the plans certainly seem to be lining up quite well. What would you say are the challenges that you face in or may have faced in achieving those numbers? You did just mention about essentially the local environment might not be set up for it or might not be quite ready for it. In those locations where you've done those feasibility studies, are those environments better than most? They're keener to go than most, more ready than the majority?
Actually, most of the time it's just paperwork that takes us the longest. Building the machines, getting the factories equipped, finding the raw materials that we need, signing up our existing customers who want to be active in other territories, finding new customers. Those things are actually quite straightforward. It's normally the approvals process that we need that takes a little bit longer. But we're very encouraged by the fact that people have now started to realize that under the Basel Convention on Waste, that there is a legal obligation on the governments in order to process their waste locally. So we make biofuels out of waste. The waste should, under the Basel Convention, be processed locally. We're offering to do that at no cost to the governments. So we have a very good win-win-win situation. The proposition for them is very, very good.
And in terms of you had a plant in South Africa, 4,700 tons a year of B100 production capacity. Is that open now?
It's not open due to COVID, but it will be open very, very soon. It's based in Cape Town. And the equipment that we're putting into that is actually made in Cape Town as well. So this is a very exciting movement for the South African economy. We're all signed up, everything's ready to go. We're just waiting for them to come out of their current phase of lockdown, and then we'll be up and running.
I mean, it's incredible, really, this amount of progress, dodging around different lockdowns, different restrictions, different border borders shutting down as well to be able to do this. Great thanks to the internet and great thanks to local teams, I imagine.
Yes, I mean, the challenge has always been to find the right people in each of these locations to allow you to grow quickly. I think this is the 6th or 7th global company that I've built. So I've got a fair Rolodex of people that I can call, a fair amount of experience in building in remote locations. And at the end of the day, the success is determined by the team that you can attract around you. And we're very fortunate that we've got a fairly appealing business. People want to be involved in something that's trying to help save the planet. And we definitely find some excellent people to join in with what we're doing.
Well, you talked just now about bandwidth and doing as much as you can within that. And staff, I imagine, as you just touched upon, is a key part of that. Sorry. Sorry, I'm in the UK and recovering from a cold. That's got to be typical July behaviour. And how have you found staff locally, teams locally?
We do very well, actually. We have a very extensive sort of friends and family network, not so much literally friends and family, but contacts and friends of the business, people that we know through our supply chain experience and the fact that we've been around quite a long time. We're also very active in recruiting women into the business. Recently recruited Jamie as our new Chief Operating Officer. We're looking at country managers in different countries that are ladies as well. Things are really moving ahead towards a more balanced situation. But it is all about getting the team right, providing them with the right onboarding technology, allowing them to come into the business and hit the ground running.
Because the growth in green talent is soaring. And as you say, there's a lot of appeal for people, younger people especially, to be working in these sorts of fields. It is extremely appealing for them, but there is the talent element of upskilling them and getting them on board with the specifics that need to be done. I just want to ask you about, just before we wrap up, the EBRD, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, plans to invest at least 2.1 billion euros in the MENA region in 2021. Mostly renewable energy and technology sectors. Of course, you straddle both these major areas. Are you expecting a chunk of this to go into biofuels? Or are you hoping a chunk will be going into biofuels?
I doubt it. Honestly, any of these government-led initiatives seem to take too long and have too much paperwork to really be able to respond. They seem to target larger chunks of investment. One of the reasons that we listed our bond was so that we could access the private capital markets a lot better. But it's still very, very difficult to get them involved in what we're doing. And to be quite honest, we're very well funded and we're moving at lightning speed as it is. I really think that anyone wants to come after and catch us, I think it's really going to have to run very, very fast now.
And in terms of public funding, government funding, do you think that really the market can continue to succeed on a private basis, and when the government funding decides to, or related funding decides to step in, great, but actually in the meantime, it's the market's got enough momentum of its own to be able to survive and grow? Well,
since the 1990s, 71% of global carbon emissions have been created by just 100 companies. This problem that we're trying to resolve was created by businesses having to make business decisions, and businesses are very good at making profitable business decisions quickly. That's just normal modus operandi for them. So this initiative is going to be privately funded. It's going to roll out very, very fast using private initiatives, and we will engage with governments as we need to, but to be perfectly honest, we can move a lot faster just as private initiatives.
And how instrumental do you think this market is in supporting the Middle East's broader climate goals? Of course, they haven't set net zero targets on a government level, but they have got climate goals as part of their national visions and other platforms as well. How instrumental do you think biofuels is to that, A? And B, do you think that there's an awareness of how important biofuels is to that now? You talked about the growing momentum, but
it's getting better, and indeed it's being driven by multinationals that are demanding biofuels. The governments are placing bets where they can. They're pushing some of the maritime organizations to use biofuels. They're pushing the rail to use biofuels. But I still think there's a lack of awareness of the fact that we can do something now about our carbon footprint rather than having to wait until we can have electric vehicles everywhere. Most of the government strategies seem to be to take the grid mix of electricity to as much renewables as possible, on the assumption that they'll then use that grid mix electricity to recharge electric vehicles, and that therefore it'll all work out right in the end. At the moment, 20% of the carbon footprint of the world is transportation. More than half of those vehicles are diesel, and all of those diesel engines can run on our fuel net zero today, without any modification, with a slight improvement in fuel economy, with a slight improvement in the life of the vehicle.
It's a no-brainer, really, isn't it?
I think so.
It really is. Carl, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. There's so much to say, and there's so many interesting stats in this conversation as well. And hopefully next time we talk, that broader momentum on the government side will have picked up and woken up a little bit more.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. I'm going to go and nurse my 𝗕𝗶𝗲. Take care. Thank you.
Excellent. Cheers. Bye-bye.